I didn't think I had a talk, but Ray asked me, if I had a talk, and I said I didn't. I just had a little, some slides of some collecting in Arizona, but he kept asking me. I really don't have any defense against a guy laying on the floor, kicking his hands and legs and screaming for me to come and talk, so I agreed to come and give a talk, a presentation. Here I am. It's about 3 years ago, Carol and I bought a place near Tucson because, some of us have been going there for a long time and really enjoy spending time in Arizona and the Tucson area. And so I guess we started spending a lot of time there, and it's inevitable with the number of collecting localities within a 100-mile radius of Tucson that I'd start getting out and collecting. So I think I gave a talk here about Arizona a couple of years ago, just my initial collecting adventures, but I got to go to two really interesting places that are kind of Arizona classics. And I thought, I thought maybe you might just like to hear about these collecting localities, because it's different. It's different kind of collecting than we do around here. Here we go out in the woods and we dig holes and go to rock cuts. But down there, people actively go into old mines, mostly because they're so dry. Up here, the mines are full of water, so you can't really collect much underground, and then the rock's hard. Down there it's weathered, oxidized, dry, and certainly dangerous to some extent, but they're accessible. There's hundreds of mines that are accessible to go underground and collect. So, that's what I did.
Okay,
Yes?
you're covering 79 mines tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, 79 mines. Oh, I better change that. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's a new talk, okay? I appreciate any
It's the Red Cloud and 79 mines. Mine, no, the Red Cloud mine is together.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Two mines.
It's not a typo. Frank's just being difficult.
Well, when you head north out of Tucson, any of you who have done that, the first landmark you come to, you can actually see this mountain from the mountain just beside where we live. When you climb up the hill and look up the valley, it's Tecacho Peak. It's a unique looking mountain. It's a real landmark, and that's the first. Yeah, can you dim the lights a bit? Maybe
It's on the layer, right? The ones there are beside ones.
Pardon me?
Back here.
I guess you can see pretty well, then.
Yeah, we can, but it'll look better.
Yeah, it looks better, dark.
Oh, yeah. But it's,
Yeah, that's good. No, it's not better.
can you see it okay? The point is, can you see it okay? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. That whole area down around Tucson in southern Arizona is called the Sonoran Desert. It's a certain kind of desert. There's a lot of different classes of desert, but the Sonoran Desert is a peculiar one in that it's, compared to the Sahara Desert, it's very lush in a lot of ways. There's tons of animals and wildlife and plant growth, including some huge types of plants like the saguaro cacti that you can see a whole bunch of here. So it's a desert, but it's a particular kind of desert that's a pretty interesting place to be. There's no water in the Sonoran Desert, but if you travel through the desert for any distance, eventually there's several of these human-made diversions, diverting water from the Colorado River and other rivers that go right through Arizona to giant agricultural areas on the west of Arizona in particular, and California. So you'd be going through the desert, all the cactus and sagebrush and desolation, and all of a sudden you come across this. And they sell the water here and there along the way to farms, and the indigenous people get access to a certain percentage of it for their farms, and there's the water is used by a number of different entities for different purposes. when the Colorado River gets to the Pacific Ocean, apparently there's actually nothing that goes into the ocean. It's all tapped off before it gets to the ocean. And there are, yeah, again, this was all desert, like you see in the cowboy movies, like I was just showing you, but you add water, and they have gigantic agricultural areas in Arizona and California. And, you know, you have to admit, you probably have bought a lot of things at the grocery store that seem to come from California or desert-like places. It's because they're using the water out there where it's really sunny. Well, by the way, these talks aren't just about the collecting place, but they're about the road and the trip into these collecting places. If you go to the Red Cloud mine, you end up usually staying overnight in Yuma, a place called Yuma. Again, you probably heard about it in the cowboy movies. It doesn't look much like a cowboy place now, but it is a big place, right near, not too far from the Mexican border. I went with the Tucson Gem and Mineral Club. They are very active. As you know, they put on the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, but as well, they do a lot of field trips, some pretty cool field trips. And this one was to the Red Cloud Mine, and that's where we were heading. We all got up early in Yuma. We stayed over in a motel and headed out there. Again, on the way there, you pass by tons and tons of farms, and they grow everything from fruit trees to vegetables to corn and wheat, all kinds of things. It's amazing. Handily, there's actually a road called the Red Cloud Mine, which is your first hint that you're on the right path to the Red Cloud Mine. But that's it. After that, you're on your own, because it's 15 miles or so through, you gotta have a four-wheel drive, and you drive through along old river washes and through all kinds of valleys and passes, and through a lot of the U.S. Marine Corps and Army and Air Force have huge testing ranges on either side of the road. Now, I'll show you another sign in a minute. But you have to stay on the road, and you need a four-wheel drive. It's pretty rough going. This is part of the road at the beginning. It looks kind of lush, but that's because this is a river bottom. This is what they call a wash down there. You drive along the dry rivers, and there's only usually water in this river for maybe 2 or 3 weeks a year, maybe. But it's enough that that's where the trees grow, because it's at the bottom of a valley. It's pretty cool driving along these rivers, because they're not roads, they're rivers. Here's one of the signs I was telling you about. These signs are about every 500 feet for much of the thing. They don't want you going off the road because they've been testing all kinds of armaments and things up there. So I didn't go out there. But it's pretty cool. The further you get away from Yuma, the closer you get to the mine, the Red Cloud Mine, the more desert-like and desolate it gets. And you're going down in elevation. So it gets really hot there, more hot than in, say, Tucson. In the summer, way hotter. Pretty interesting country. Interestingly, too, even though it's so desolate, you still see all kinds of beautiful plants that are sparsely out there, but you can see these prickly pear cacti flower at that time of year in April when I was there. And this is a plant called brittlebush. And there's lots of this yellow brittlebush and flowering prickly pear cacti. They're really quite beautiful. They're like fluorescent flowers on these cacti. And these are choyas. There's another kind of desert plant called choyas. These ones weren't flowering at the time I was there, but they also have beautiful flowers, and I'll show you some of those when we go to the 79 mine. There isn't much, you wonder how they exist, but if you don't know, in southern Arizona, they get times in the summer, particularly July and August and early September, where they have what they call monsoon rains, where they get maybe 3, 4, 5 inches within a day. And that's when all the river valleys flood and the roads flood. And water soaks into the ground, and these things get their water they save up for the rest of the year, or much of the rest of the year. More and more desolator. And then you get to the Red Cloud mine. This is the Red Cloud mine. This is the old head frame. You can't tell very well, but right there, they actually blasted an open pit over the vein structure to get mineral specimens. This mine was a lead, zinc, silver mine for many years, up until about the 30s. Then it was abandoned in the mid-30s, and only people went underground to collect specimens. They decided to try and recover a lot of specimens, so they actually blasted an open pit of the vein structure just to get specimens. I think the next picture probably, well, I don't know if it's the next picture or not, but no, not. I'll show you the pit in a minute. This is some of the mine buildings. There's actually a guy who lives out here. He's a professional miner. I spent a couple hours talking to him. He's actually kind of a nut bar. But he lives out there alone. He takes care of the place. He collects specimens and sells them, and he controls who can go and collect there. By the way, anybody can collect there. If you want to give him $25, he'll let you go and collect. And there's, you can find good minerals there, so I thought it was pretty worthwhile. But he lives in a kind of a little building, and he operates out of this building. It's where his office and supplies and everything are. This is a bit of cocky, I don't know if anybody here knows who Ed Over was, but this is a bit of cockiness from I don't know if it's this miner or other collectors, but they were feeling that they could outdo Ed Over, this guy Ed Over, who was the collector that collected a lot of amazing specimens from the Red Cloud mine in the past. As I said, this guy lives there, and when you're in his office, this is the scene out the side of the office.
Where does he get the water to wash?
Oh, he's got a big well. There's a big well at the mine. It's a very deep well, because it was an operating mine years ago, and the well is operational. It goes down several hundred feet. It's got power, and he pumps the water up. Yeah. It's actually pretty good. He's got power.
So he's landline power?
That I don't know. I didn't
Or is
notice.
he generating?
I didn't notice. I can't say.
Curious. It's a long way back.
Good question. He's also, like a lot of Americans, a gun nut, and he was holding, I don't even know what this kind of gun is, but some of you guys might know. It's some kind of really scary gun. And if you walk around, there's piles of shells, like bullet casings, or I think he just goes, he just shoots the desert. There's piles of casings everywhere. He's kind of a nut, but he knows his stuff, and he's the guy that controls the place, so what can you do? Here's the open pit here. Now, they blasted all this out. If you look at the end here, you can see the underground workings where they actually come out right here. And I was a little worried there might be some underground workings underneath here, because this was all the vein structure, but this is the only place you can see underground workings. And you can go right underground right there if you want. But we were collecting in the vein materials at the end under these workings. These are all in situ veins.
How deep is that?
Well, I would say each one of these is probably about 20 feet, so you could say about 80 feet down to the bottom, maybe 90. Yeah, and it's a very steep ramp. If you want to drive down, it's very, very steep. I walked down.
When was that done, you know, Dave? When was the blasting done?
Not that long ago. I think there was 2 different stints. There was, you remember what roughly the
Yeah,
dates?
so Wayne Thompson and Les Presnick were involved in that in 96, 97, and then Collector's Edge was in after that.
Okay.
Not that long after. It was maybe 2001, something like that. The Collector's Edge was in.
They had modest success, I think.
I mean, say in the are you going to talk about that? Or, in the Wayne Thompson Les Presnick era, they did it for I think 3 seasons total, 2 years hardcore, and they found one big pocket in all that time. And
That was the first year too, I think.
Yeah, and the second of the 2 full years, they found like 6 worthy specimens, and they spent a heck of a lot. So
You can imagine,
That holds a lot of money.
that's a lot of
it's a
money.
lot of money. Now, Collector's Edge poured probably more money into the amount that they moved, but they did not hit a pocket like Wayne Thompson and Les Pressmick hit in that one. You're gonna have some specimen photos later, and some of the groups, including the one that was from me, are from the Pressmick Thompson workings.
All right, the reason I asked is that I'm pretty certain we were at the Red Cloud in '83, and there was nothing.
No.
Wouldn't have been.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, right.
So it was pretty cool to go down there and collect in situ. And here's my buddy,
That's a wolf for me.
Richard, and he has some pretty nice wolfenites here that he had for sale. I didn't ask the prices, but he was hinting, it'd be like 1,000 or 2,000 or something. But he did say he took them, this was right after Tucson, he took them to Tucson and didn't sell them. Nobody would buy them, supposedly, but I expect he sells some. They're pretty nice crystals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a good, is that a thumbnail, Wendy, or too big?
Just a little over a thumbnail, I'd say.
You just-
Maybe a toenail.
That's a good size crystal.
I like this one. I like them on matrix.
That one's cool.
Well, anyway, it was to tantalize us, but he would have been happy if we found some. He said, fly at her. But we didn't get to go underground. We did not go underground here, just on surface. So I think the really good ones, you have to go underground to the right places. But these are specimens I did collect. And that group of crystals is about 1.5 centimeters. That's pretty good. I was pretty happy to find something like that, They're all in this iron oxide, quartz, willemite, fluorite vein material. There's a lot of fluorite and a lot of willemite, fluorescent willemite there. It doesn't fluoresce green like the Franklin willemite, but it's willemite. I like this one. This crystal is, as you can see, is only 4 millimeters. It's just a little guy, but it's so nice, and it has those nice faces on the pinacoid. It's a wonderful crystal. This one's got some little quartz or calcite crystals on the side of it. So I was pretty happy, and when you see them, they're really easy to see. When you're there in the bright Arizona sunlight, you go, there's one, or if you crack a rock and you see right away, there's a wolfenite. It's very, very easy to see. Hemimorphite, you find hemimorphite crystals there, they're just small, they're all small crystals, but hey, I never collected hemimorphite before, I never collected wolfenite before. Well, that's not true.
That's not true. Medladen.
And Medladen, I did collect in Morocco, but I mean, not very often, it's pretty unusual. Little mimetite crystals, these are really small crystals. You can see those are all like just less than a millimeter. Still, it's mimetite. Now you see these spiky crystals are willemite. That's what willemite looks like at the Red Cloud mine. And there's lots of it, oodles of it. It looks like this. This is willemite. They're quite fluorescent, but they fluoresce like this. Sort of almost like a scheelite kind of color. But there's lots of it. If you put your black light on, almost every specimen you find, it's full of fluorite and willemite, and they brighten right up. There's a lot of the people who went on the trip, all they wanted was fluorescent rocks. It was fun. And there's lots of these little, sort of half centimeter or so crystals. Wasn't that hard to find. I was surprised. This is one that Ray had bought and has since sold, I think.
Yeah.
But it's just that's a 10 millimeter crystal. I would have loved to have found a 10 millimeter crystal like this. I did find a specimen just like this, but the crystal was smaller. It was about 6 millimeters. And, but it's just like that. It's so vibrant. I brought her home carefully and I put it on the shelf. And the next day I said, okay, I'm going to photograph it now so I have a record for if I give a talk someday. I took it off the shelf carefully, turned around, closed the cabinet door, and looked at it, and the crystal was gone. And I looked down the floor, and there was a whole bunch of little pieces of a tiny little crystal that fell off. I couldn't believe it. I got it all the way back from the mine to my place, and it fell off.
The silvery stuff,
Yeah.
those crystals, what are they?
Well, there's some fluorite crystals. A lot of this is calcite, quartz, and willemite.
There's no metal crystals?
No.
No.
Zinc?
No metal, no.
No, it's
That's-
just crystal faces reflecting.
You can find some galena and sphalerite, but it's actually pretty unusual. It's from more deep down in the mine. The parts we were at, that's all gone. There's very, very, very little sulfides left. I know it looks like that, but there's not. Those are reflective faces. There's a couple of specimens here just to show what's possible. This is a 5-inch crystal or specimen of crystals that's in the University of Arizona collection. That's a wolfenite. That's what we all had visions of sugar plums in our heads when we went there. That we'd hack into a pocket full of these, but it didn't happen. Here's another one. This is from the University of Arizona collection. Beautiful, aren't they? That's a nice specimen. Yeah. So that's the Red Cloud Mine.